Hey everyone, welcome back to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, the podcast where we get real about what it takes to live fully and thrive, both mentally and physically. I'm your host Avik, and today, trust me, you are going to want to stick around because we are peeling back the layers of one of the most overlooked and often misunderstood aspects of health. It is the maternal mental health. Yeah. So now, if you think this conversation is only for moms, then think again. So, whether you are a partner, a friend, or someone who is planning a family in the future, then this insights we will uncover today could change how you support the people that you love, or even how you view yourself. So my guest today is someone who is rewriting the rule book of on the motherhood with honesty, compassion, and evidence-based wisdom. So please welcome Kayce Hodos. So welcome to the show, Kayce.
Thank you, Avik. I'm happy to be here.
Lovely, lovely. So, Casey, like before we start, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all of our listeners. Dear listeners, Casey is a licensed clinical mental health counselor and perinatal mental health specialist with over 20 years of experience. So, her mission is very clear, like to help the anxious, overwhelmed moms navigate the messy, beautiful, and often unglamorous side of the motherhood. So, without relying on that polished, perfect Instagram advice that, let's be real, often does more harm than good, right? So, Casey, welcome to the show, and I'm really, really excited for us to dive into this critical conversation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Me too.
Lovely, lovely. Uh, so, Casey, like you have made it in your mission to strip away the sugar-coated narratives about motherhood. So, if you can share a bit of your own postpartum journey and how it uh, actually led you to where you are today.
Sure. This is my passion, and when I was pregnant with my son, this was 13 years ago. He's 13 now. I can't even believe that. But I had, I listened to all the marketing messages that society sends to mothers that it's going to be a beautiful time and you're just going to cuddle with your little bundle of joy and it's just going to be the happiest time of your life and you've never felt love like you feel when you have your baby in your arms and everything will come naturally to you and all you have to do is listen to your intuition because every mother just has this. And that was not my experience at all. I love my baby. I still love him, even though he's a difficult, teenager now. But it did not, mothering and bonding and all of that beautiful stuff that was promised to me did not come naturally to me. And I
Right.
think that we need to be just honest about that motherhood looks differently for everyone and it isn't always pretty. And it's actually very challenging. And I think when we don't share the truth with women, and I'm not saying make them scared to become
Mhm.
mothers, but just an honest conversation about like, this is, it's not a guarantee that everything's going to go as planned.
Mm,
A lot of things are not going to go as planned, and that is okay. It doesn't mean you're a bad mom if
mm,
if you don't immediately feel like this natural process is coming so easily to you. I had a lot of shame around that because my baby, the first week of his life, we were at the doctor every day. He wasn't gaining weight. He had the diagnosis of failure to thrive, which sounds terrifying. And I felt like it was my fault. I felt like a failure. And I just think we set women up sometimes, to have this perfect um, postpartum, and it's just not the case. And especially in our modern world, um, depending on your culture, you may not have a lot of support around you. And so without that, it really is very motherhood can be very isolating. And that is just not healthy. It's not healthy, and it's actually very toxic, to send the message that you can do this if you're strong. And it has nothing to do with strength. It is just it's the toughest job you'll ever have, being a mom. And I just think we need to be more honest about it.
Exactly. Exactly. And like also you have mentioned that experiencing postpartum anxiety. So was there a specific moment that made you think that this needs to be talked about more openly?
It was actually that first week. I remember sitting in the pediatrician's office, uh, my with my husband and my tiny baby.
Mm-hmm.
He and I were like zombies. We had no sleep. We were if we when we were awake, we were worrying. We were feeding this baby every 2 hours, and he wasn't able to gain enough weight, and so the doctor had us coming in. Basically, like in my memory, it was every day, but it may not have been every day. It may have been like every other day, but I know it was a lot to weigh him, to make sure he was gaining weight. And they really stress you out about this in those early days. And it's important. But I remember sitting in that waiting room, and I looked around and I saw, you know, moms mainly of children of all different ages, because this was a pediatrician's office. So there's, newborns up to age 13. And so I looked around and I was just like, why is no one telling the truth about how hard this is? And I remember looking at a mom sitting across the waiting room, and she could tell, I'm sure, by the look on my face, that I was in a daze. I was confused, uncomfortable, sad, nervous, worried. And she said, "It gets better. Trust me." And that was, I really, I, I kind of latched onto that, like, okay, that gave me a tiny bit of hope, that it gets better. And but fast forward to today, I think that it doesn't really get better so much as it gets different. Some of the parts, when your child grows up and they get a little more independent, and you kind of start to get the hang of this like developing child, and the growth stages and all that. And so you kind of start to get more used to it. But really, like, the challenges are endless. But you asked me about my anxiety, and so I think it was that first week when we were facing so many challenges that nobody had warned me about. And I think the conversation around postpartum mental health issues, we have certainly come a long way. We have platform, you're not afraid to dive into that with me, and I love that. Being having access to platforms like this that people can listen to no matter where they are. And like in your intro, when you said, like, no matter where you are in the journey, like, whether you're just thinking of planning a family, and just to be aware of this. And so, yeah, it was really just being afraid of all of these things and being totally blindsided by how hard it is, and the promise of this beautiful time period was just a lie. I felt. Um, and so, yeah, I think what I was facing was a blend of anxiety and depression. And it was certainly the sleep deprivation is huge. Um, no one is thinking clearly when they are up every 2 hours, feeding their baby. And I just, that was really hard for me. And I think, if I already knew this about myself, I knew that I needed a solid like 8 to 9 hours of sleep to function. And that wasn't happening. And so that broken sleep that you experience, during the nights, getting up to take care of your baby, like, that's really hard on your brain. And so I know that, like, that's at the root of a lot of postpartum mental health, you know, problems, is that your brain is just not getting enough sleep. And if you don't have the support, to help you take care of the baby, how are you going to take care of yourself? So
Exactly.
I don't know. Did I answer your question?
But I really love that what you mentioned. Yes. And I mean, I have to say that I think a lot of mom listenings right now are kind of probably nodding their heads, definitely,
Mhm.
realizing that they are not alone. And yes, definitely you are not alone. But here's what I'm curious about. Like when did you notice the gap between the advice being thrown around on the social media and what moms actually need? So, what do you say?
You know, I think I saw two things happening around,
Mhm.
you know, the time of the pandemic. Um, More of us were glued to our phones than ever because we were so isolated. And so I saw that social media was
Yeah.
meeting the needs of a lot of people who were lonely and afraid. And so that part was really positive, and there were conversations happening that hadn't been had before, and you know people were able to access advice and just feel like somebody gets it, you know, to feel seen and heard. From these mom accounts, you know, on Instagram. Um, and there's a lot of honesty too. And I love that, you know, that a lot of these Instagram accounts are kind of um, spreading awareness that the mom game, you know, is not glamorous at all. But there's also, I saw that there were a lot of promises and products being sold or supplements or, you know, like, or just do this. And this is a game changer for motherhood. You know, just buy this thing, this baby gadget, this monitor, this and this is going to solve all your problems. And that is the part that I think is really dangerous because there isn't a cure all for this. It involves time and it involves taking care of yourself in tiny ways, you know, eating, getting sleep, drinking water, you know, reaching out for support. Like it involves a lot of things that we aren't comfortable with. You know,
Mm.
asking for help is really hard and and so I think when there are false promises that you know you just do this one thing and your life is
Mm.
going to be so much better, I feel like it's not true. And it's actually dangerous because if a woman buys that baby monitor, let's say, for example, and she's still having a hard time
Mhm.
and she's still struggling, she's going to blame herself because this product is a you know is supposed to be a game changer, and if it didn't work for me then what's wrong with me? And I think that message is really the most toxic one that I've seen on social media.
Oh, okay. Understood. So, like you have worked with so many moms over the years. So, what's the one common misconceptions you see about maternal mental health that you'd like to set straight?
Hmm. I love that question, and it's a really difficult one to answer because there's not just one, but I think the main one is that things are going that mothering is going to just come naturally to you.
Mhm.
So just trust yourself. Just trust your intuition. And I think that's dangerous, frankly, um, because for a lot of women, they're completely overwhelmed, or they've had a traumatic birth, or a really difficult pregnancy, or maybe they've suffered a loss before. So they're now welcoming a baby, a healthy baby into the world, but they lost their last baby or they had a stillbirth. They went through something just really traumatic and horrible. And so that, you know, we don't know who we're talking to when we share these kinds of dangerous messages. And
Mhm.
um, and so I think, you know, that if mothering doesn't come naturally to you, it doesn't mean you're broken. And I think that is the main message that I'd like to communicate today
Mhm.
is, you know, that we all need support and nobody's has ever promised that,
Mhm.
you know, no pediatrician will tell you that. At least I hope not. Or, you know, or, and no OBGYN, I hope, would tell a pregnant person that, oh, just trust yourself. No, you reach out for support. You surround yourself with people you trust, and that you can ask for help, and you can say, "Come over and help me," you know, clean, or can you bring a meal by? Can you? go by and pick up some groceries or order some groceries for me, or whatever it is, like these little basic things, like they all add up. And it is certainly just not natural to be able to handle all of the challenges plus the regular day-to-day stress that comes along. You've added a human, you've grown a human, you gave birth to this human, and now you're trying to keep this human alive, plus trying to keep yourself going. And that's a huge task.
Very true. Very truly said, I would say. So, I mean, sleep deprivation is a massive issue for new moms.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, like we are also mentioning, like both of you were getting, I mean, too much when your baby was quite very, very, very small. So, uh, so from your clinical experience, what's the link between the lack of sleep and the mental health, and how do you help moms um, cope with this vicious cycle?
Mm. Yeah, it is. We know that our brains need sleep. Now, everybody needs different amounts of sleep.
Hmm.
And the 8 hour kind of myth is out there for sure. But, not
Hmm.
every, not everybody needs the same amount, but we certainly need a solid chunk of time to sleep. And so, because when our brains don't have enough sleep, like that is a very basic need. And so the primal part of our brain, if it's not getting enough sleep, it feels threatened. And so you're not thinking clearly. Your brain is kind of preparing you for fight or flight at that time, because it's trying to guess up there. It's up there in our heads trying to keep us going and help us survive. And
Right.
so if we aren't sleeping regularly, there must be a threat around. And so
Hmm.
your brain just starts to, kind of just go into survival mode at that point. And so, of course, like that's where anxiety begins. That's what anxiety is. It's our fight or flight response that's kind of gone a little bit, crazy. So that is at the root of that, and so and it's compounded. So night after night, not getting enough sleep just it just compounds. And so there's this exponential effect that happens, that it's really it's harmful, for your health, not only your mental health but your physical health. And and you're not able to really be rational when you are sleep deprived. And so you could start to have all kinds of thoughts that just aren't helpful and can
Hmm.
sometimes be dangerous. And so you may just start to beat yourself up, and have a lot of new moms have what we call intrusive thoughts. And they can be just visions of like bad things happening. And so it's just kind of like extreme worry, and these vivid images can come up that I'm not good enough to be a mom. My family would be better off without me, things like that. And it's really important to know that like these are just thoughts. Thoughts are not actions, and thoughts are not intent to do harm. And so that's a big part of my work, is that reassuring moms that like we're not really sure why this happens in postpartum, but it's probably tied with hormones and the lack of sleep and being overwhelmed, and just all that perfect storm, that happens. And so for people to just realize, and I really think mindfulness is important during that time, to just recognize that like, oh, that's a scary thought, and just to remind yourself that like that thought is going to come and it's going to go. It doesn't mean anything about me or my ability to take care of my child, or it doesn't make me a bad human because I'm having these thoughts, and it certainly doesn't mean I'm going to act on these thoughts. They're just thoughts. um, so that's a big part of it, of my work in those early days, for sure.
Lovely. Great. And
Oh, and you asked about, I'm sorry, you asked about solutions.
yes,
Can we talk
yeah,
a little bit about that?
please, please, definitely.
Yeah. So I we have found, so the research shows that if
Mm.
new parents, and I'm including moms and dads, partners um, in this, if you can get at least a 4-ish hour chunk of sleep,
Mhm.
it is protective, you know. So if you can take turns with your partner, and I know
Mm.
like when you are exclusively breastfeeding, this is more difficult to do. But if you are able to pump, to use a breast pump and have enough milk for your partner to do a bottle, and you guys can switch off, and each person can get at least 4 hours, and maybe you start with at least three. You know, work your way up. Um, it really is. It's not enough to be sustainable, but it is better than that broken every hour or every 2 hour sleep cycle. So so that's a good. I think that's a good rule of thumb to try to shoot for in those early weeks. If you have a parent staying with you, some people do have wonderful support. You know, a support system, family, friends, neighbors, so if you can work something out with somebody you trust, or if you're, incredibly lucky enough and privileged enough to hire a postpartum doula, do it, because that person can really be supportive of um, of the whole family, of dad, mom, baby. They can do so many things around the house to help to pitch in. So really support is key. And so everybody just like if you don't take anything else away, remember that like try to get at least 4 hour chunks of sleep because that can really be a game changer.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Lovely. So, I mean, Casey, like, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your wisdom and honesty with us. Like, this conversation was exactly what so many of us needed to hear. And
Glad.
for the listeners, like if today's episode hit home, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need a reminder that they are not alone. And if you are feeling inspired, then take the action, reach out for help if you need it, and pass this episode along to someone who does. So, Casey, if someone wants to connect with you, how they can find?
Please go to my website. It's Kayce Hodos, KayceHodos.com. And you can keep up with everything there. I have a couple of free audio series that you can download there. Subscribe to my email list there. It's everything. If you want to work with me, you can schedule a call right there online. I would love to hear from you.
Perfect, lovely. So, as always, dear listeners, stay curious, stay kind, and remember that a healthy mind leads to a healthier life. And this is your host, Avik, signing off. Thank you so much.